Hello everyone and welcome to this follow-up of the course Plant Biology and Technology. I'm Giovanni and the topic of this video will be what society thinks it's natural and non-natural related to crops and plant varieties. But the concepts we will discuss are general enough to be applied to any other organism. You already had several courses about genetics and how the plant, how the cell works and how the DNA works and the gene expression. And in the previous lectures we discussed about plant breeding schemes and how to improve a crop with a traditional breeding program. In the next lecture you will be introduced to the genetic engineering, so how to introduce and to edit the genome of a plant introducing traits from other genomes. But before that, I would like you to use the tools that you have collected so far to think about modern agriculture in a more general way. Try to answer questions that society actually asks, such as, is it okay to edit a genome? Is it a variety obtained with genetic engineering less natural than a variety obtained with traditional breeding schemes? To do that, we will have a small exercise in the end of this video. But before that, let's make a brief sum up. From the moment we start domesticating plants and animals, somewhere 10,000 years ago, we stopped the natural evolution and we replaced natural selection with the human-based selection. In this way, we selected those traits which are useful for our needs, but they are not necessarily useful in a wild environment, and actually usually is the opposite. For instance, just think about what advantages could have a wild tomato plants to have such a big fruit. It would just be a metabolic burden. And we also select, for instance, wheat plants to be short, but in nature wild wheat plants are much taller because in this way they can grab much more sunlight and do more photosynthesis. So we end up with varieties which are extremely different from their wild counterpart. And if the selection at the beginning was happening a bit unknowingly, in the last 100-120 years, with the introduction of specific breeding schemes and statistics and marker-assisted selection and the sequencing in the very last period, we speed up the process and we end up with variety which are not able to live in a wild environment anymore. So, or at least if they will have big disadvantages compared to the wild counterpart. But still society considers these varieties to be natural and healthy, and we accept them with no problems. Also considering that in some breeding programs involve processes like the doubling of the ploidy or the introduction of random mutation in the genome in order to have eventually some random good traits or interesting traits. But again, whatever is considered to be traditional breeding is considered natural. But in the moment we talk about genetic engineering of plants and the crop obtained with genetic engineering, then there is a rejection. These kind of crops and these kind of varieties are labeled as unnatural. But the science provided in the last years hundreds, actually thousands of papers proving the safety of these crops and how useful they are to reduce the time of breeding. But with genetic engineering we can produce variety much faster than with traditional breeding schemes, because we can introduce resistances not only from plant of the same species, but we can actually use as a source of resistances also other species, for instance. I would like you to play now the part of a breeder who just developed a new rice variety introducing a resistance from a wild donor. And you are using a backcross strategy, so that means that you are the 6th generation of back crosses and you restored roughly 99.2% of the recurrent genome. I would like you to calculate how many base pairs of the donor genome will be kept in the new variety and compare this number with the length of the plasmid used to create golden rice 2, one of the most famous GMO cases in the world. And you can do that in a short essay. Try to explain which do you consider to be the more natural variety, if the golden rice 2 or the variety obtained with a back cross. And we will discuss this in the next lecture.